Rightio, hi everyone. I've just come for a wander down the beach and get a bit of fresh air and stuff. Very nice. Anyway, video number 2. I kind of just want to talk about, I've just been reading a lot of stuff on Facebook recently and completely hear the frustration. I think mostly males feel it, and to do with unschooling. And the two most common things I sort of hear is, number one, are the kids actually even learning anything? I don't think they're learning anything, and that's how it can feel at times. And the other one is just their unruly behaviour. It's like, my kids are just behaving so unruly and they just won't listen. I used to feel exactly the same way. I'd get so frustrated, particularly with the kids' behaviour, because I'm just like, there's no discipline, they're out of control, what's going on, why won't these kids listen, And I reflect back on my upbringing, and I lived in a family that exercised discipline. They weren't horrible or over the top, but you knew where you stood and you knew what you had to be doing or shouldn't be doing, and you listened. And it's funny because I feel like today, it's just like, I guess sometimes my wife and I have very different views. I've been brought up to believe that you do as you're told, and you listen the first time or you're in trouble. See, the thing that I think we have to realise with children, and what I'm noticing with ours, is when we first started this journey of unschooling, I was a very uptight father that believed children should be listening, seen and not heard, all that good silly stuff. And I just noticed over time that it wasn't really working. I know it's probably wrong comparing children to animals, and I might get into trouble for this, but I remember a time once where when we had horses, Cindy and I used to have a couple of horses and love riding. I'm not a great rider, but I love riding. And I remember one day we used to live out by a place where the guy trained racehorses, and one of his staff, workers, employees were trying to load one of the racehorses onto a horse float one day to take it out for a ride. And she was trying to get this thing on, and I could tell she was frustrated. She was getting really frustrated with this horse. It was huge. It was like twice the height of her almost. And she was yanking on the thing, and the horse kind of just pulled back. And I remember it pulling back and breaking the lead rope and took off down the road. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is not cool. So I went chasing down after the horse, and because I had a lead rope I'd been loading my own horse on, and I had the lead rope in my hand. So I just walked up to the horse and I clipped it on, and I just sort of, what you do, pat a horse's face and just talk to it calmly, and then just started walking back to the horse float. And the horse just started to follow me quietly and just walk behind. And then when I got to the horse float, I just turned around and faced the horse and just calmly spoke to it and walked up the horse float ramp and onto the float, and had no problems whatsoever getting this horse onto the float. And the only reason I share that story is what I've found in particular, if you have a strong-willed child, it can be very, very similar. I know we have one very strong-willed child, and she tests my patience a lot. And I used to just lose my rag with her all the time, say, come on, Siva, get it sorted, cut your crap out. And I tried that, and then I thought, oh, this is not working. And I was thinking about that whole horse thing, so I started taking a different approach with her, and would be calm but firm. And I noticed she started to respond. And the more I did this, the more she would actually respond. So I think a father has a really important role. I'm not saying that children don't listen to their mothers, but what I'm saying is I believe that fathers have a really important role in making children feel secure. And I think if we get angry with them, then they get defensive and they start digging their heels in, and they tend to fight you all the way. And I've noticed since I've calmed myself down and just began to speak calmly and, firmly, that they're responding. Not every single time, but most of the time. I get a really, really good response, or get the response I'm after. And I've just noticed having that calm attitude with a firm voice, not a harsh voice, but so they know that I'm serious, they seem to respond really well. And I think sometimes we can, out of our own frustration, just begin to react. And I think the kids pick up on that really, really quickly, and they tend to respond the same way. The other thing too is the old, if you sit down and do maths for half an hour, then I will let you play half an hour of Minecraft, for example. You know, that kind of doesn't work either. And honestly, this whole unschooling thing has gone totally against the grain of how I was brought up. And so I'm actually having to relearn myself. And it's pretty cool, because I'm seeing things that work and I'm seeing things that don't, you know. And that whole trade-off thing, you know, you do half an hour's maths, you can do half an hour Minecraft. The only problem with that I have found is that they'll begrudgingly do the maths. And so my question is, so they've done what they've had to do, but it's made the child really frustrated, and I just wonder how much they've actually learned or retained through that. I remember at school, you know, doing maths and doing science and all that, but I hated it. It didn't excite me. They didn't fit my learning style, and so I would just sort of shut off it and show no interest. Yeah, and because of that, I actually didn't really retain any of the information that I'd been given or supposedly taught at school. So the trade-off thing with, you know, you do the maths, you can have Minecraft, the reality is they are not going to retain that knowledge from their half an hour of maths learning. The other thing with males is we can be pretty black and white. You know, we're two things about males. Number one, we want everything to fit into a slot. We want the boxes to be in a row, and we want everything to fit in the right box and for it to make a lot of sense. The other thing about males is that we're always wanting to fix things. You know, if a woman has a problem, the first thing we want to try and do is fix it, whereas really the woman just wants us to shut up and listen and try and understand how she feels. You know, and it can be the same with unschooling, is that if we're not seeing results, if we've got nothing to measure to, then I think there's a frustration there for males, because we want to see measurements. We want to see that something is happening. And I'm actually going to go into a lot more depth in that in one video, because there's a lot to sort of cover in that. So I think I'll cover that in a video by itself. See, the thing is, you know, for males, I think unschooling can go against the grain of how we're designed to think and behave. I'm not saying all males. I know for myself, though, it's challenged me. And the thing is, I've had to relearn, as I said, and because of that, I'm starting to see amazing results. I'm seeing kids that are showing real signs of intelligence, real signs of ingenuity, creativity, and it's just amazing. You know, for me, the day the penny dropped was we had been invited to stay at some friends' place on their farm in our bus, which was really cool. And there's a book, it's called The Bigger Digger, and I think they read it at school, The Bigger Digger, where they have to dig a hole when the digger gets stuck, so they have to go out and get a bigger digger. And so, you know, all the kids read that book or learn to read that book. The thing that helped the penny drop with me was the day that we were at our friend's farm, and Judah was driving by himself. He had to sit on my knee because he couldn't reach the levers, but I was doing nothing. I just had my hands back, and Judah was driving this 12-ton digger around this paddock and having an absolute blast. And he's also read the book The Bigger Digger. So for me, the penny dropped. It's like, the thing with unschooling is, you know, you can read the books and stuff, but you also get the experience. You know, you can't take a 12-ton digger into a classroom with 6-year-olds and let them all have a turn driving it around the desks, you know? And so I think the thing with unschooling is it gives you that more freedom to actually learn a more holistic approach. You know, you don't just read about it, you have the experience as well. And I think that's just gold. So this is not a long video, but I just want to encourage, you know, all the fathers out there that are unschooling and that might be feeling frustrated, that just try and trust the process. I know that sounds a bit airy-fairy for some of us, but, you know, just try and let go and try and trust the process. And the sooner you lose your frustration, the sooner the kids will become less frustrated. And it works, I've seen it, you know? So be encouraged, hang in there. This is only video 2. I've got several topics I actually really want to touch on. You know, I think very soon I'm going to do one on dealing with family members that are not sold on the idea. We've been through the mill on that one, so we know how that feels. And I've got a few other things I want to talk about, learning styles. I want to talk about all sorts of things to try and get the best out of the unschooling experience with your children. The unschooling is a great way to go. The results speak for themselves. I've looked at a lot of studies that have been done, surveys that have been done with unschooled children that are now adults, and yeah, all I can say is it's pretty incredible. So hang in there, guys.